Over the entirety of this arc so far, the Monster Association arc, I've been paying closer and closer attention to Murata's artwork because I've been having the feeling for a very long time now that One and Murata are trying to convey a lot of hidden secrets about the series through the artwork and the artwork alone. Something that we know for a fact we don't get in the one webcomic, but we are getting in the manga. So for example, for me, the biggest thing was seeing all those shots of the moon throughout the entire battle, and it got me thinking how it looked like something was watching them, like in an odd symbolic way. And then we have chapter 1039 cover where it really hit hard for me because I'm like, oh goddamn, we have the moon and we have the eye of this underwater creature in conjunction. That was a big time play by Murata and One. So it did confirm my theories about how the eye really meant something more significant when it came to why there were so many shots of the eyes in so many panels during this arc. And then double tap that massively in a huge way in chapter 1053 when we have God itself standing on the moon. And then also noticing how there were so many shots of the moon in panels with Tatsumaki was also a big thing, because then we see in chapter 1056 God actually approached Tatsumaki trying to take her into the fold. So I'd argue that's also something that was indicated long before in the actual paneling of like God looking down through the moon watching Tatsumaki fight. So the imagery I think is very important for theory crafting and trying to figure out where the end game of the story will go. Though to be fair, because there's a webcomic, I don't actually normally go through like theory crafting videos for One Punch Man because there's really no point, I think, in the greater scheme of things. It's only when the manga shows content that is different than the webcomic, okay, now I'm very hyper intrigued. And the theory glands were salivating once again for One Punch Man theory crafting because of the cover page of chapter 161. That really caught my attention because there might be another hint where things are going to go in the series of One Punch Man that not even the webcomic has sorted out just yet. So real quick, if you don't know, I do my live stream reactions to the One Punch Man chapters on Cold Requiem, link in the box below to that channel, and of course to my Twitch channel as well, which also has those streams. Very important. So off the rip, what caught my attention in that cover page of 161 was the picture of the universe spliced in with an eye and then spliced in with the One Punch Man moon. That's a very, and then you have Saitama and Garo facing off against each other. That was a very sexy, good looking cover. Ain't no doubt about that. Murata is magnificent to this day. He is one of the best in the business, no doubt about that. Now, we already know, once again, that Giga Chad God was on the moon when he took the powers of Homeless Emperor. And we've seen the moon on, again, several panels in this arc as if it were an eye watching from afar. My main idea, essentially, is that there is a giant cube on the back of the moon, the dark side of the moon, and that main cube connects to the other cubes that are all over the One Punch Man world. Because we know that touching the cube, like the smaller cubes, can tear open fabrics of space, according to Blast at least, then we can assume that the space and time on the moon, or at least the back of the moon, since that's where we see actually God come out of, before he stands on the moon, we see him kind of merge from the darkness behind the moon in a very epic and ominous way. And in color too, my God, but good. That was so much hype. That being said, since again God came from that dark side of the moon before he stood on the moon, there's a chance here that on the dark side of the moon, there is some weird space-time shenanigans going on, or maybe some sort of gateway to God's realm in the back of the moon. Something to that effect. What is exactly, who the hell knows, but there's something there that I think is very important when it comes to God's connection to these cubes on the planet through the moon. But through this, we obviously have a connection with the moon and the spliced eye in the cover page of 161. So then the real question is, what is up with that weird version of the universe? Like, what's going on there?
Saddle up, Seabiscuit.
The universe that we see is a circle, but it's not one that many people have seen before. I remember seeing it like years ago, but I forgot what it all meant until Sky Kings Is, one of the tier 3 cats on Twitch, shouts of course Sky Kings Is, reminded me that it was actually a logarithmic view of the entire observable universe. And much love for that, because I honest to God forgot what that even was. Yes, because the universe is so big, it's basically impossible to kind of put the entire thing on like one picture, like a linear picture. It'll just be an endless sea of galaxies and planets and nebulas and all sorts of things like that. Especially if, let's say, the universe is actually infinite. Because there's a reason why we call it the observable universe. It's what we can see from planet Earth. Outside of that, we don't know what exists. It could just be more universe endlessly, essentially. But that whole theory doesn't matter. Let's focus on what we know, which is that this is the logarithmic view and scale of the entire observable universe. A nice way to comprehend what that kind of scale is, rather than actually trying to view it from the entire universe perspective on a log scale, let's kind of bring it back to home. Everyone knows what a pH scale is, I'm pretty sure, right? You have like your acidic stuff, you have your neutral like water, and then you have alkaline stuff. Like something like water is neutral, it has a pH of 7, and you all know what water tastes and feels like, etc. But let's say you drink a tablespoon of apple cider raw apple cider vinegar. It burns, okay, when you drink it. And that's because the pH of apple cider vinegar is around a 2 or 3 compared to the 7 of neutral water. The difference of a pH of 2 or 3 compared to 7 is tens of thousands of times more acidic. The difference of 1 pH value, so the difference between 3 to 2, or 3 to 4, or 7 to 6, or 7 to 8, that difference is 10 times more or less acidic. The scale is changed for 2 orders of magnitude for each value. Basically 10 raised to the second power, 10 squared. So this same concept of logarithmic scale is used for the entire observable universe, kind of changed in a disk fashion. You have the center of the universe, which is our solar system, and then you have the outer rings, and the outer rings from our own solar system and from the sun are the galaxy, our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. And then after the outer rings is the nearby galaxies and the nearby cosmos, so like the Andromeda galaxy and things like that. And then after that is the layer of the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is the remnants from the Big Bang, which also includes the last layer, the same thing. The very last outer layer of this universe is the plasma ring that is also remnants of the Big Bang. Hopefully that makes some sense. I just botched it.
I have no idea.
Hopefully I'm on point that one, because I think it's actually a very, very sexy play on the part of Marauder 1 to kind of match up with this idea of the all-seeing eye of God. So what I'm getting here from this imagery, ultimately speaking, more than anything else, is the scale of what God might be working with. I theorize that Lord Boros was told the fortune from a fortune teller that was in contact with God, given some of the Cthulhu, Lovecraftian elements I've seen in One Punch Man. This is something that I actually talk about in a video I did in November of last year for a very big theory video. And if that's the case, then God essentially sent Lord Boros to like destroy the entire planet. And if that's true, then God's reach is easily the whole galaxy and probably beyond that too. Because the idea of the image of the observable logarithmic universe could be a play on the idea that God can observe the whole universe with this eye. That'll be the idea here.
Crazy.
Because based on what we see in chapter 1038, God seems to be humanoid in appearance. And we've seen various other images of God in a humanoid type structure as well. Now, to be fair, it could all be just like an avatar, and none of the images of God we've seen so far are the actual real form of God. But I digress. because God is in that same chapter in fetal position, we can't see its eyes. But every time we have seen God's face, it's never in a form whereas anything that could be called, quote, eyes. Where are the eyes of God? What is going on? So I have a lot of ideas and theories about why this is the case here, but right now I'm starting to believe more and more that God's eyes are just a gateway that allows it to interact with lesser dimensional beings and lesser dimensions. Yes, the reason why I'm using the term lesser is because if we take the image more to heart about God and the logarithmic known universe being under its observation entirely, and knowing that God can make pockets of space-time, dimensions, because we see exactly this when God kills Homus Emperor, despite Homus Emperor's body still being in a chokehold by Zombie Man. His mind and soul were sent to an alternate space and dimension. Then God isn't restricted by anything that is in the normal laws dictated by this universe. When Saitama and Flashy Flash saw God, if that was actually genuinely God in this cosmic-like pocket of space and time for a few seconds, then that could have also been, for a brief moment, a glimpse into not just another dimension, but a higher dimension. Whoa, kind of freaky. Blast himself also has the power to do dimensional travel, according to Tatsumaki. And we see him infiltrate God's space when he first meets Saitama and Flashy Flash via some sort of black hole. And some scientists theorize that black holes are the gateways to alternate dimensions. So God knew who Blast was, and when God tried to indoctrinate Tatsumaki into the fold, Blast soon came after. Just how, again, with Flashy Flash and Saitama, after they touched the cube and they viewed God for like a few seconds, Blast soon came after. So it would also make, I think, a degree of sense for Blast to also interact with a higher dimension, since the man is already traveling from dimension to dimension. And now that we know that Blast isn't fighting alone, since we can see the silhouettes of the Ginyu Force Guardians of the Galaxy,
Together we are the Ginyu Force!
The GFGG for short, even shorter is the GG, the Ginyu Guardians, right?
Right.
So each person of the Ginyu Guardians could have either the power that Blast has, same power, to travel to other dimensions, and they all congregate in a particular dimension, and or particularly, Blast himself gathered all of these people from alternate dimensions and universes, so as a group collectively, they can fight against this higher order being to prevent this higher order deity from destroying their world / universes / dimensions. That would be ultimately the idea here. I say destroy, but it's just kind of filler for whatever God is trying to do and why Blast and company are trying to fight it. I feel like instead of destroy, it's probably more like consume. Consume is probably more accurate word here, but another video for another damn time. Ultimately speaking, the cover page of 161 really got me thinking about the scale that Murata and One might try to take when it comes to the big God. And I think it's also part of the reason why, for the redraws of chapter 100, they had Saitama punch through a pocket spiritual space, a pocket spiritual dimension, the Phoenix space. And I think that's kind of low-key prep for what probably is a much bigger scale fight for the end of the series. But again, the question here is, how big is the scale? That cover page, 161, it got my theory crafting glands salivating.
The aroma is a bit special.